this is Yuris Kaja again. Haven't spoken to my audience in a while. I've been busy with a number of things. Last week, all last week practically, was kind of sitting on pins and needles about the U.S. election. And also, before that, I was working on some due diligence stuff and doing a bit of reporting for FE, the Spanish news agency, as there were various developments taking place here. The most recent of which is, of course, that Latvia has gone again into a fairly substantial but not total lockdown as a result of rapidly rising COVID-19 infection figures. We had more than 300 per day for a few days last week. It's dropping down, but those are because of the weekend lower testing rates. Also, which is a bit disturbing, is that the hospital beds that can treat COVID patients, which of course require a lot more personal protection equipment and precautions so as that the medical staff doesn't get infected, those hospital facilities are now feeling a little strain. And we are also seeing a slight, or not more than a slight, uptick in the number of deaths. So every time the statistics come out, there is also a small number who have died. This was not the trend during the summer. There were under 50 deaths, or even less, just several weeks ago, and now we're nearly up to 100. I don't know what the latest figure is, haven't looked. Other than that, of course, the COVID caused lockdown has its opponents, those who think the measures are too harsh and those who really don't believe that the virus is for real. We do have a bit of that Lunazoid faction here in Latvia, and we also have those who believe that the measures are too harsh or that they're not harsh enough. And the word is out that in order to reach this decision, the government had pretty much of a hot and heated internal discussion as to exactly what they should be doing. I know what is going to happen now is that all public events are canceled, except outdoors. You can gather up to 50 people for some sort of a meeting, gathering, march, picketing, demonstration, whatever. But that's it. Theaters, movie theaters, cinemas, as you Brits might like to call them, are closed. Restaurants and bars can only provide takeout service, and bars, basically, places for gathering and drinking and dancing and all of that stuff, those are closed until the 9th of December. And based on the COVID statistics as they come in during this kind of almost lockdown period, then the government will decide on what to do further and how to deal with the situation. So that's probably the only major news that we've had here. I guess it's also the only major news in the rest of Europe, where things are even more serious and to many frightening than they are here. Now, of course, there was the U.S. election. Now, one of the strange things about Latvia, or at least one of the strange things about Latvia, if you look at the country as a presence on Twitter and on other social media, is that we could possibly have been the 51st state to go for Trump. Well, 51 states, 50 states didn't go for Trump, but we could have been another red state, although Latvians don't like to be called red. It has bad past associations. But there is a serious contingent of Latvians who are Latvian citizens who have no voting rights in the U.S., who are ardent fans of President Trump, never mind that he tried to undermine NATO, hectoring everybody that they should be paying 2% and then saying, well, we'll just leave, and that sort of thing. And also the fact that the president's social policies, okay, maybe, unemployment for minorities was down and all that, but that was simply a continuing inertia of the economic recovery that took place under the previous administration. And certainly the people who had to be subsidized, the farmers who had to subsidize for unsold soybeans because of the trade war that Trump launched against China. Now, maybe deservedly or not, but certainly it was done with such vigor that billions have to be spent on compensating those export industries that were hit, or export sectors like farming that was hit by counter tariffs by the Chinese. Um, we'll see whether the new administration, whether Joe Biden, continues to take a severe, though not necessarily an aggressive and bullying and carrying on type of line against the Chinese. I think there are issues with China, but the total demonization of China that I see by some people here in Latvia may not be totally founded in fact and reasonable analysis. Anyway, there's some really lunazoid views about what happened in the U.S. election. There are people here in Latvia who really believe that there have been millions of fake votes. There are people who seriously believe that Joe Biden, a middle of the road Democrat who's been in the U.S. Senate, I mean, he's had no other career other than being a politician in the U.S. Legislative process, that he is a communist, or that Kamala Harris is a communist, and thereby completely diluting the political science definition of a communist. A communist is someone who believes in state ownership of the means of production, central planning, and in the practice, as we've seen it in communist countries, in a single party dictatorship, no market, very little or no private enterprise. I mean, where do you see that on the Democratic Party program? Nowhere. This is absolute insanity. But there are people who really believe that in Latvia. There are Latvian Americans who believe that, and these two groups on social media sort of feed off of each other. So if you are on Facebook, if you are on Twitter, if you have access to any of these places, take a good look. I mean, the discussion goes on in both languages, in Latvian and in English, and there are threads that go jump from one language to the other, especially when they're coming from Latvians in the U.S., which is good testimony that the kind of good bilingualism that was kind of a hallmark of growing up as a Latvian emigre in America, that hasn't totally disappeared. That most people who have Latvian ancestry in the U.S. Can at least write and express themselves in Latvian. That's a good thing. The fact that they express totally lunazoid views is another story, but that's that. There's a lot of TV coverage here, of course, of the election and of the uncertainty, whether Pennsylvania is going to go this way or the other. And what was most difficult for Latvians to understand is that people are not voting for the president. Nobody voted for a president in the last election in the U.S. People voted for slates of electors in 50 different states, and the size of those electoral slates differed by some underlying algorithm, and that's kind of incomprehensible to Latvians. In Latvia, you go, you vote for party A, B, or C. Then you see, who's gotten the most votes. Nobody ever gets a majority here, but people get sort of enough votes so that you can try to make deals with the other parties who've gained a substantial amount of votes. You have to have 5% of the vote here in Latvia in order to get seated in the parliament. We have a parliamentary system, as most people know, so that it is the parliament who affirms the government. There is no electoral college here. And even the president is elected by the parliament, although there have been suggestions that we should have a president elected by the people. When it's sort of getting back to what the Latvian parliament has been up to, yet again, despite getting more than 10,000 signatures in less than a week, the Latvian parliament has rejected looking at a so-called partnership law or life partner, dzīves biedru, as they say in Latvian, that would be gender-free and that would allow any two people to register their relationship and to get entitlement to certain rights, visiting the other partner in the hospital, dealing with medical issues, taking care of the other partner's children, and the like. And this was rejected again, the fear of taking one step toward gay partnership or same-sex partnership or marriage. 63% of the population, at least according to a survey done by the relatively reliable SKADS surveying group, seem to favor this, say we're okay with that, we're okay with same-sex partnership, or we're okay with this kind of deal. Not the Saima. And that sort of speaks to the backbone, the courage, and the level of education on these matters of the people that we have elected here in Latvia to be our legislators. This is what we have to deal with. Every day, some young people have been demonstrating outside the Saima to remind them of this, and someone has managed, the movement for the partnership law has managed to extend gathering signatures, and they hope to gather 20,000 signatures instead of the minimum 10,000 for this initiative, which was sort of pushed back by Latvian Independence Day, which is November 18th. So, and there is also a mechanism by which people, Latvians living abroad, can identify themselves, can prove their Latvian citizenship, and then they can participate in this signature gathering. This is a new mechanism that the manabals.lv, which is the initiative platform, that they have implemented. So anybody out there who believes in equality, who does not subscribe to various loony bird theories of what people of non-standard sexual orientation are all about, please sign. I did. I'm a heterosexual. I have 3 kids. I have, no interest in anything other than women or whatever. But that doesn't entitle me to repress others. That doesn't entitle me to dictate how other people should live their lives, especially if they do it voluntarily, peacefully, and without taking anything away from anybody else. So, well, that's what's happening here. I might have skipped over some interesting issues, but that's what it is. From the 51st state that could have gone to Donald Trump, this is Juris Kaja in Latvia, signing off.